Thank you, Mr. Hanan. Hello, good evening. I'm saying it good evening because it's the end of the day, right? For me, I still have 3 hours to go, but you're pretty much at the end of the day. So my name is Jhuma Acharya. I am a very, very brand new. I think there is no one newer than me in the district. I just started in December 1st of 2023, well, 1 year ago, right? Previously, I used to work for a refugee resettlement agency. I feel so weird to talk like this. I have this phobia of my TED Talk once upon a time. And I work for a local nonprofit called CRIS, Community Refugee and Immigration Service, as a resettlement case manager for 12 years. Then I transitioned from there to this job. I am hired as a school family engagement and DEI coordinator for the district. So I'm kind of your resource in the district. You can call me for any relevant issues. But today I wanted to present you about some of the cultural components of Nepali culture, but also give you some glimpse of what refugee resettlement, little bit of it, and what are the different groups of refugee groups that we see that you teach in your everyday classrooms. So probably that will be helpful for you. We'll also go through some cultural components of Nepali culture. Particularly, we are working on finding relevant speakers in different cultures so that you can have different knowledge and different skills about handling situations at different times as we move forward. I've been connecting with other people from different faith groups to come and talk to us at different events so that we all know what are the different holidays they celebrate, how do they celebrate, how can we be culturally appropriate to them so that the school becomes more inclusive and the school climate becomes very much welcoming to our families and children. So that is our mission, and I'm just one person helping, but there will be more people coming and talking to you over the next few months and years. So every time I have to run to my computer to click, so please forgive me, okay? So my name is Jhuma Acharya. My last name is very significant because Acharya is a very well-known last name. So you might have seen 7 students in your classroom and 10 in another, 11 in another one. It's a very, very common last name. And luckily, or unluckily, I also have my wife working for the district. Durga is my wife. So probably you might make that connection. So this is my small family. We live in Black Lake. This is my small intro. So I'm originally from Bhutan. I'm a former refugee. I always introduce myself as a former refugee because there is something connected with that. That's too much personal to me, but also I think it is very relevant to share whenever I introduce myself, who am I. I work for CRIS for 12 years. I live in Black Lake. I love talking, sharing my lived experience because this is how we learn from each other. And I really like to share what I have experienced so far, and maybe that will make some connection in someone's life, or will be a turning point, or will be a learning point. I'm a full-time PhD student at College of Social Work at the Ohio State University. This is wrapping up my second year. My special interest in the research is refugee and immigrant families, and especially with the school and family engagement and DI relevant work. So I'll be doing a lot of those work. Maybe I'll be talking to you about my research in the future. Nobody knows. It looks a lot, but they all will come together. I have some learning objectives for the day. For the session. So immigrant and refugee population in Central Ohio, who are the different dominant group of immigrants that we see in Central Ohio, and also what we are likely to see in our district down the road. Bhutanese Nepali families in Lincoln High School, their presence, where did they come from? Many of you might have that question, why this community is growing here, why? What is the reason behind? And background about the Bhutanese Nepali families, Nepali culture, some parents' perspective in school family engagement, some of the social issues that we see within the community, and how can school support families. So we'll talk about those things in a very synchronized way. I wish this can be pulled a little closer. Good try. Oops, no. I made him. We'll use it next time. Just come there. Okay. I will not make that mistake again. So just a glimpse, because this is of interest of everybody. Immigrants in Ohio. This is what our history says, like the current status of refugee and immigrant population in Central Ohio. Ohio is a home of more than 528,000 immigrants, which is 4.5% of 11.7 people living in the state. So there is a significant number of immigrants living in the state of Ohio. And we all know the reason, because we are one of the welcoming states. And also because Ohio is home for so many people for various reasons. The top metro areas in Ohio with immigrant population, Columbus, obviously, we are actually the head. We are the master of among those. So Cleveland is less than what we have, likewise Cincinnati and Dayton. So these are the 4 major cities that has a large immigrant population. Are you doing me a favor then? Okay, next. So percentage-wise, where the immigrant workers, in percentage of immigrant workers, Ohio occupants, like who works where and how much by percentage. If you see physicians and surgeons, there's a big number. These are the students that you teach them, and they go and become doctor and start serving us, right? And likewise, software developer, application software company, we have 26.5% of immigrant workers in that. In Ohio, I'm just talking about Ohio. Likewise, post-secondary teachers, we have 22%, and computer programmers, almost 19.6, it was 19%. So that was one of the preview of how immigrant population statewide. If you see in Central Ohio now, narrowing down to Central Ohio, we are the 14th largest city in the country, which means that these are the 155,000, more than that, immigrants reside in Columbus with 10% of the total population. So we immigrant and refugee occupy a larger percentage of our population. It might seem to be very small in terms of percentage-wise, but if you see the presence of these families in our district, there is a huge presence of refugees and immigrants in our district. Somali is the largest refugee group in Central Ohio with more than 45,000 individuals. This is the data I pulled out from the Somali Association of Columbus. Likewise, Bhutanese Nepali refugees admitted as estimated 35,000 in Central Ohio. That is, now you can connect why so many Nepali families are here. So more than 35,000 are here in Central Ohio. They live there are so many in Lincoln Heights School District that are also relevantly very high in Reynoldsburg and Southwest Petoskala. Refugees from Democratic Republic of Congo are increasing in Central Ohio because of the recent flow of refugees from African Horn of Africa. And then Burmese, Ethiopian, Eritrean, Afghan, Iraqi, Ukrainian, and other refugees that are slowly growing here. So these are the likelihood of the families from that region, from this ethnic background, we are likely to see down the road as we grow and expand our district population.
I'm always afraid you're going to step off that empty spot right there.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. So now, diving down a little deeper into the community, who are this community, where do they live, and why do they come to the country? I will not read the entirety of the slide. I'll leave it because this will be available for the school, and you can read as and when you need it. But generally speaking, so I know many of you are pretty much aware of it, where Bhutan is by now, because some of the families might have said they are from Bhutan. But there's very conflicting statement from many parents, like some of them would say I'm from Bhutan, some of them will say I'm Nepali. It's very confusing because there is an identity match between the people from the 2 different countries. We are ethnically Nepali because we speak Nepali language, but we are from Bhutan originally. We were evicted from Bhutan back home. So there is a history why we got evicted. It was the one people, one nation policy of the king, which means people living within one country should speak one language and should dress like, and you have only one faith. All those different types of propaganda made by the king result in eviction of Nepali-speaking people from southern Bhutan. And as a result of that, more than 120,000 Nepali-speaking Bhutanese were evicted in early 90s. Then they were all living in refugee camp in Nepal, including me. I came when I was 14 years old, and then lived in refugee camp for 20 years. I was a 8th grader when I left Bhutan, and then I never had an opportunity to go back to school to get my high school formally. I completed my 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade all by distant learning. I got my high school that way. Then I went to college, got my bachelor degree, then my master's degree. I was teaching high school for almost 17 years. Then last 2 years before I came to US, I taught microbiology for undergrad. So most of our families that we see here, they all are from refugee camp. They lived in refugee camp for at different time. Some, like many of the parents who are of the age of 40 to 50, they were all youths who left Bhutan at early age, and they actually grew up in refugee camp. And so many of our families, I know them personally, is because either we lived in the same camp, and I was their kids' teacher, or maybe we are from same village back home. That's how I know. Many of the families I already know. So this is the history about Bhutan and a little bit about language. Most Nepali, almost all the Nepali whom you see today, who call either as Nepali or Bhutanese Nepali, they all speak Nepali. Nepali is the mother tongue. There is only one language that we speak commonly. Nepali. There is no other. There could be some dialects, but language-wise, there is only one language. So all speak Nepali. Religion-wise, most of them are Hindus. You might have now noticed because of the various holidays that come across, right? If you have been teaching in the district for the last several years, you might have seen Dasai, Diwali celebration, and you might have already guessed them, but majority of the population are Hindus. There is also a significant number of Christians and Buddhists in the community. Another population that we see in our district is Ethiopian. These are all people from Ethiopia. And I also put a little bit about background, why they became refugee, where they fled from, how long were they living, and then down there with their primary language. So their primary language spoken in Ethiopia are Oromo, Aramaic, Amharic, Somali, and Tigrinya. These are the common languages that they speak. And most of them are Christian, but there is also a big percentage of Muslim and other folk religion. So I put the map so that you see where they are, which part of the world, so it'll be easy for you. Because many times what happens, we know, sometimes I have heard people saying, I was in one of the school district presenting a similar kind of thing, and somebody asked me that she speaks African language. And I was taken aback by saying that Africa has how many? 67 different languages. There is no one language that says African language. The different languages that are spoken, likewise, same with Asia. So there is no language called African language. It is either Somali, or is Oromo, or is Tigrinya, or like French, or Swahili, or Kinyarwanda, or whatever. But there is, so many times we kind of have that concept of saying that if I say I speak African language, it covers a lot, and there is no one language that's just saying African language. And I also put a map so you can see where the neighboring countries and where people, when they get evicted, usually they flee and live by a nearby country. Like many of the Ethiopians, they come from Kenya because they live in Kenya after leaving Ethiopia. Same way they go to Yemen and Sudan and South Sudan, and that's how they finally come to the United States through the refugee program. Another one large population that we see in our district are from Somalia. So violence plunged in Somalia for decades, and refugees flee to escape civil war. So, and this is where Somalia, so now you can see how many, generally when we say Somalia, people can come from Kenya and they can still call Somali because they have fled Somalia and lived in Kenya. Likewise, they will go to Ethiopia, they live in the refugee camp in Ethiopia, and they come to the United States through the resettlement process. Or they will sometimes live in Djibouti, or in Eritrea, or in Yemen, and they flee that way also. Somali is the main language. They also speak Arabic. Some of the Somali families, they do speak English, depending upon which part of the country they are in. And 99% of Somalis are Islam by religion, which is, I think, very important for us to know when their holidays are coming, what kind of cultural belief they have, what kind of holidays do they celebrate, when it falls, and things like that. Probably next one. Eritrea is another country where we see a good number of students in our district. So they speak languages like Oromo, Amharic, Tigrinya, and they also have different, I'm sorry, the last point was I accidentally put a wrong point there, but then it should be Eritrea, but it became Ethiopia, and down one should be Eritrea too. So most of them are Christian, but there is also a big number of Muslim coming from Eritrea. So they're inflected by like how people from Sudan, and most part of Sudanese population are Arabic speakers and are Muslim, Islam by faith. Similar influence is seen in Eritrea. There are so many, a large population of Eritreans are Muslim by religion or Islam by religion. So that is generally what the different kinds of population that we see in our district. The rest of the slide, I think I even don't need to be going to the slide one by one. I will just talk about generally about how do refugees come here and what actually do they bring along with them. We generally see a human being and the face and the clothes and the festival, but there is so many things hidden inside. As a teacher, as an educator, I think it's also very important to understand what is the background. What do they come with? Because we generally see we always see that there is a lot of myth behind immigrants and refugees. Oh, these people are poor people, or there is no culture behind them. They live in a very underserved areas. It is true because that's how life has propelled them to live in. But then when they come to the United States, there is a luxury for them to move around and expand their wings around and try to find a place where they like to call that place as their home and live, right? But either you live here for 20 years or 25 years, if you come to this country as an immigrant, there's a common story to everybody. They all come with some sort of trauma. Just take an example. You are the easy peasy ways. Suppose you are going to Nepal, okay? You have a plan to go to Nepal. You flee from here to wherever and ended up in Nepal. You are placed in a remote part of Nepal. Say you went to Jhapa. You happen to meet 10 Nepali families. How comfortable are you to ask for a bottle of water? What would be your comfort level? 5%, 10%, 20%, 30%, 0%? You just need a bottle of water. It'll go 10. I spoke English right from early childhood because I went to English medium school. I taught in English medium school for 18 years before I came to the United States. The very first day I came, that was 2011, January 3rd. I still remember very vividly because that was the day Rhode Island received the heaviest snowfall and I was placed to Rhode Island. I will never forget that. We were in New York airport. We are waiting for our connecting flight. My younger brother's daughter, who actually is a high school student here, she was a year and a half old, and she was asking for the popcorn. She pointed the popcorn, she was asking. I know I always felt I was always proud I speak English. I'm educated, right? But then that day to ask that popcorn, I didn't have the courage. Because I was new to the place, I did not know how people would buy things here. I have money with me, but I didn't have the courage to buy that popcorn for my little niece. She was crying and crying and crying and pointing to the popcorn. I know popcorns were called maize back home. We call them maize, right? So I felt so humiliated at some point. Why don't I have courage to buy that one? But then I didn't have that courage still. So I asked a young boy standing by me, a white boy, and I asked, can you help me buying that maize? And I pointed luckily. That's how he knew that what I made by maize. I gave him $5. He gave that $5 back to the person and got a corn of popcorn. It's as simple as that. But I didn't have the courage to ask even if I had that language capacity. If you don't have that language capacity, you'll be blind, right? So that is why I was asking how much courage how much confidence you have that for you to ask for a bottle of water when you're in a new place. Even if you're there for 1 week, but if you're there for the rest of your life, then you have to think about what it culminates, what it will develop in your brain. So generally when refugees are resettled to any part of the world, there is a triple paradigm of this trauma that impacts these people throughout their life. As they navigate their life in a new place, as they move from every day, from their everyday chores to extending outside to the community, to the social network, this trauma will follow them throughout. It has been following me since 2011, more than that. It will follow throughout my life. Because there are so many things we always find challenging. And that is very important for us to understand as an educator, to keep at the back of the mind when we communicate with our families. They would not understand what you are saying right away. There are so many reasons behind. Language is one big reason. They might be able to catch up some linguistic capacity, a linguistic skill, but the way we speak may not be the same way that you speak, right? You may mean this way, they may understand the other way. You may crack a joke, but I may not understand and laugh at you, right? Because I didn't grow up in that English-speaking environment. So it will be the same thing, like they will try and come to the school, attend the meeting, but they won't really understand what the meeting is about if it is not clearly to their brain. So in many times what happens is, we have a tendency of feeling, oh, these people, they really do not care about education. Because I invited them for a conference, they didn't show up. I called them for a meeting. The dad came and sit cross-legged and listened to me patiently, had no question at all, and left. I did my job, right? I communicated with them, I shared what has happened. That's all I can do as a teacher, as an educator, as a counselor, as a social worker. But more than that, we have to try and understand what is behind. That's why I brought this slide here, just to tell you, like, there are so many things happening, and these things are circling in their brain all the time. When they come to a new space, these things will start rotating in their brain. Okay, so these are three very important things that one has to understand what actually happens in someone's life when they flee their country, when they live as an asylum in another country, and then flee from that country to another country to another country. If you're just talking about people from Syria right now, because I work with Syrian refugees a lot, they have moved from one country to another country 9 times before they came to the United States. Some of them, they speak 9 languages because that is what taught them. But the reality is this will follow with them. The fear of leaving the country, you left your country, when you leave the country, you leave everything behind. I did not bring a single piece of clothes with me when I left Bhutan. Because it was not packing up for a journey, it was rescuing for life. It was running away for survival. Refugees run away from their country for survival. When they have to run, there is a fear of like someone looking behind you and attacking you. So that fear exists pre-departure from their home country. When they depart the country and when they come to another country, there is another trauma that comes living in another space. Suppose I left Bhutan and I lived in India, Nepal. Nepal was not my country, although we speak common language, but it's very new to me. I've never been to Nepal before. And to adjust to that place took some time. And as I was adjusting, now this new phase of life began to move to the United States. So this kind of things goes around every day in everyday life. So we'll go through the next one, how refugee trauma is impacted in what different stages. I know the slide is very small, but the colors are very beautiful. So the triple trauma paradigm begins this way. The country of origin, what happens, why do people leave the country? We all know why people leave the country. There may be an economic reason people leave the country. There may be a security reason they leave the country, right? Or you can go for a trip, like if you're living in the United States, going to India for 3 days, that's a different thing. But if you're living for your permanent resettlement, so because of the war, because people are forcefully evicted, they're tortured, they're discriminated, their property is confiscated, there is a religious persecution. All these things together will create a trauma in these people. So they will flee from one country to another with all this in their brain. Okay. Then they come to the country of asylum. Like in my case, I was living in I was too young to think about all this thing though. As a social worker now today, as I realized what my life was back home, I can think of, I lived with all this trauma for 16, 17 years in refugee camp, but I never felt that way at that time. And then when you are living in a new place, then there is always the journey that is associated with moving from one country to another. If you are normally packing up and traveling, just think of that. Suppose you are here, you are going to Belgium for 5 days. How many days ahead do we pack, plan, right? I went to Nepal last July. We started packing in probably March. We planned in January, started packing in March, and eventually went to Nepal in May. It took us time because we were planning, but for refugee, there is no plan. You have to run away, you have to hide from the security forces, you have to hide from the government to run away. So there is no way, there is no time for them to pack up, get their things ready, get their birth certificate ready, get their credential ready. The first thing is, how do you catch your baby, hold your little baby and run away? So when you come to another country, that the journey already has created that trauma. The other one is safety. How do I survive safely here? Is this place a safer place than what it was previously? Likewise, the uncertainty, what's going to happen after this? How long am I going to live here in this country? Should I have to move from here to another country? And the family separation, they might have not come all family together. They might have come in different segments, like family might have been broken into pieces. Like the same thing happened to me and my parents. We came together, but one of our brothers was put to jail back in Bhutan, so we got separated. My elder brother was living in northern part of the country. He didn't even know that we were leaving. Likewise, the loss of identity. Then you move from one place to another, you lose your identity. We were very well known as Bhutanese nationals back home, but when we left Bhutan, we became refugees. We got a new entitlement, the new tag, right? And that refugee replaced our nationality. So we became refugee. You know, generally my experience of being refugees, I felt this way, that I'm a trash. I don't even fit in a recycle bin, nor I fit in the other trash bins. So I was kind of, people would not even accept me as human being. I have those terrible experience of being a refugee. So I can only imagine how I felt, and I can correlate how someone would feel. Then with all this, now you have another layer of trauma when you come to United States or other advanced country for the rest of your life. So you're here, DISCRIMINATION is always following you. I'm saying it loudly because I've worked in this area for so long. There is a huge discrimination. The way of looking these people down exists in our community, in our society a lot. They always think refugees or immigrants are all people who drain our resources, which is false, FALSE. Because these are very hardworking people. The two first slides I showed you clearly identifies where immigrants go and work and how do they contribute to our greater cause, to our country. Then the adaptation is challenging always. As I was asking a bottle of water is challenging, but if you have to really adapt to everyday life, that is challenging. Unfamiliarity with the system, because we live in a very systemic country, right? We have a system here. Everything is in system, supposed to be in system, right? Then we have to adapt to that. So I came from a country where there was no system. I can go to the grocery store, pick up the items I like. I can go right away. Even if there are 5 people standing in the line, I can go to the front and pay 5 rupees and take my things and go. That's what my system was. When I came here, no, you have to be in line. Wait until you are called by a register. All these things are new. Now, on top of that, you have no language, right? That adds the trauma level. So family separation, obviously, families are not resettled at the same place. They all are scattered all around. They don't have a choice where they can go. And likewise, the loss of cultural identity, then the sense of feelingness of belonging to a certain place is lost when they move from one place to another. And all this will put together a kind of big burden in these families. That is why there is a very high level of mental health issues among this population that you might have seen, you might have experienced, you might have heard, you might have read in papers. So with all that, now summarizing, coming back to my own community, I'm now from Bhutan to Nepal, refugee camp to Rhode Island, then to Columbus now finally, okay? So Bhutanese Nepali culture is very unique in the sense because I can say very proudly about my own community is because we are very community-centered population. We have a sense of connected among each other so close. We always call ourselves as family. You don't have to know a Nepali person to be called brother or sister. We don't go by names, we go by relationship. So traditional greeting, many of you might have already explored this. We go by saying namaste when we greet people. Normally, our parents will do the same thing. So we didn't come from that background where people will say hi and hello in the street. It was not a practice back home. That is why sometimes when you say hi to a Nepali neighbor, they may not respond to you. Don't take that as an offensive. It's just the way they grew up. It's just the way they have spent 50 years of their life, 70 years of their life. So even if you say, hi, grandpa, they would not look at you. Because we didn't come from the culture of eye-to-eye contact. We were taught not to look at someone's eye. That is a disrespect. We were taught like that. We grew up like that. That's what you see. But when we are here in the Western part of the world, if you don't talk to someone looking at the eye, that is a disrespect, right? You're not paying attention. So you are in a family meeting, the mom sits in front of you, you're saying blah, 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 blah. The mom looks down, and at the end you decide, oh, the mom doesn't pay attention. This is the way the mom grew up. And she is so respectful because this is how she was taught. No, don't look at someone's eye when someone is talking to you. It is very common in most of immigrant culture. It's very common in Indian culture. It's very common in, like I should say, Asian culture. So we greet by saying namaste. Most people, they do namaste. Younger people will do namaste to older people. That's how the practice is. Okay, usually older people will not say namaste. It feels like if a grandpa says me namaste, I'm really not doing good. I should be saying namaste to him. Elders should be treated with marked respect. There's a very high respect for older population in the community, in the family. Grandpas, even if they are 95, they're still considered to be head of the household. Although they don't make the financial decision, but they still make a lot of other decisions in the family. Even if you're married, they generally live in a multi-generational, our community lives in a multi-generational home. So there's a great-great-grandpa, there's a grandpa, there's a dad, then kids. So the 5 generation, 4 generation in the same household. It's a very common practice. Calling by names is very disrespectful. They would not consider disrespectful when you say them, when you call Mr. Amber or whatever. But if I say that, it will be considered disrespectful because they know I should not be doing that. But now when an American person says that, they will accept it. But it's not a common practice. So they live in a multi-generational home, follow lunar calendar. That is why our holidays do not coincide with our American holidays. Naming ceremonies are very auspicious. These are very, very important ceremonies. That is why if your student has a sibling, newborn sibling, they will miss in the naming ceremony day because it is considered to be a very auspicious ceremony. Death rituals are very unique and very long. Very feminist-centered, respect-based community. What I mean by that is nobody will call people by name in the family. Like my older brother may call me by name, but I have no way to say my brother by name. If I do that, I'm out. That's not a common practice. It is a sign of disrespectful. Well connected among the family. So there is one family here, even if they don't know each other back home, if they have met each other, they will have that kind of connection somehow. Either they might have shared the same refugee camp life back home, or maybe they came on the same flight, or maybe they live in the same city somewhere. So pretty much people know each other very quickly. Now, a few things after this is little different than what you might have experienced, what you might know, but would be new thing to you. So Brahmins are the highest categories. So there is a caste system prevailing in our society. I should say this because this is very important for teachers to know, for school to know. There's a very high prevalence of caste system. I'm sure many of you are aware of that, right? What caste system means. There is a hierarchy of, societies divided into different strata, hierarchies of families, and people are considered to be high caste and low caste. So that is why I told you at the beginning of the intro, my name is Jhuma Acharya. Acharya is considered to be the highest category. The teachers, the meaning of Acharya, Sanskrit meaning of Acharya is teacher. So I sadly consider myself as the highest level of Brahmin, so-called. And because of that categorization, there is a discrimination based on that. Okay, so Brahmins are considered to be the highest caste, followed by Kshatris and others. The caste system perception still prevails in older generation, still in a family where their grandparents are, that system still prevails. It has gone away a lot, which is a good thing, but that still prevails. And because of that, if a student is coming from a multi-generational home, the sense of being superior over someone's caste still persists. And that could be one of the reasons they might get in fights sometime. The misunderstanding might come from that area. So that is why I thought it's important for us to discuss today. And I'm more than happy to answer any question at the end. Major holidays are Dasai. It is also called Dasara. That falls sometime in October, November. That is the holiday where people come with a red tikka. Okay, I don't know why rice, but rice is mixed with a red color thing and is given as a blessing by the senior member of the family. Diwali or Deepawali or Tihar, which is a common name, is celebrated sometime in November, which is also called the Festival of Light. So I think it's important, that's why I put this thing little exclusively here, is the naming ceremonies we also call Noran or Noran Sanskar. In most cases, the two names, priest will give one name and the parents will give another name and the child will have two names. Sometimes they'll have a middle name. It's very funny, in our system, middle name actually identifies gender. I don't know how many of you have learned that. My name, if you say Jhuma Acharya to an Indian or Asian original person, they will always understand that's a female person. Because if you say Jhuma Nath Acharya, then they, oh, that is a man. But if you just say Jhuma Acharya, there's a female name. It's a funny coincidence happened. It was back in 2019 probably. One of the Indian student at Canal Winchester High School wanted to do a project with Refugee, and she emailed me, "Dear Miss Acharya, I am interested to do a project and this, and I see you work for CRIS. Do you have a time for me to meet with me?" And I said, yes. I responded, I have my Jhuma Acharya only in my signature form. And she thought it was a female person, so she respectfully said Mrs. Acharya all the time throughout our conversation. And one day we scheduled a meeting. She came to meet me. She signed up in the front desk. I came to get her and said, "Oh, I'm looking for Mrs. Acharya." "Oh, that's me." And she got so embarrassed. So then I realized I should put my middle name there so that people would know. So that's how our middle names are very important. Middle name usually will identify gender. Naming happens in the 11th to 12th day after the birth. Normally it's 11 days, considered very auspicious, and the child gets the name from the priest, not from the parents. Bereavement periods are very unique. This is one of the common problem we have seen with our employers. We have also seen a lot of problems with the school, where students are not allowed to stay for the full bereavement period because our bereavement period is very long. It's 13 days in most cases. If a parent passes away, the children are supposed to be in isolation for 13 days. They don't usually come out of the house or eat with other people. They are very much limited to certain food, and they're not supposed to do any of their daily activities. So bereavement period is very long. Generally lasts for 13 days. Immediate children, which is like daughters-in-law, son, and wife. These are the immediate family members who stay in isolation, and they all wear, like, if the husband dies, the wife who is mourning will be in white dress. They are not supposed to be touched or hugged by anybody. We don't even say namaste in the situation. So if you visit a family who is mourning the death of their immediate family member, like parents, we don't hug each other. I know what hugging means here, but we are not from a hugging culture, so touching is not allowed during your bereavement period. No other person than sibling is supposed to touch. So siblings, if they are remaining together, they can touch each other, but not others. Even the children are not supposed to touch their parents when they are staying in that mourning time. Grieving, honoring, and memorization happens in the main house. So there are three different things that happens. Generally, grieving is observed like any one of us would observe the death of any person. But the other one is honoring the family. The person who passed away is honored every evening. There is usually a recitation of his name and his legacy, and the family will celebrate that. And this is generally done in a common setting where the immediate family member will sit little separately, then other family member, and will listen to the stories of whatever suppose if it was about my dad, somebody will talk about my dad, maybe his best friend will come and talk about his legacy, what he used to do, and that just gives some kind of relief to the children who are grieving to come out of that solace. Well-wisher friends, family member gather for prayers and support. It's very common in Nepali family. If a neighbor died, and even if you don't have any family relationship, still they go and support the family. They provide so many social support and other financial support to help each other to come out of that grief. 10th day is considered to be the most important day for the immediate extended family members. They will come together. That is the first day that other family member can eat at that house. So until the 10th day, nobody eats. Other than those who are mourning the death of that family, nobody will from outside will eat in that family. That's a very common and unique culture in our system. So if suppose say my uncle passed away, I can go and eat. But if it is not my immediate uncle, I don't eat in that family. I think it came from a background saying that probably the family would have more burden for having more people to come and eat. So probably it could be that reason, but I don't know what is the reason behind. Then 13th day is the last day of the rituals where we usually do a cleansing kind of activity by the priest, and the family is then exposed to the rest of the other members. The year round, there is no celebration in the family. If dad passes away this time, then the whole of the year, there is no any religious event happening other than the naming ceremony of a child. So there will be no wedding in the family, there is no dasai, there is no tiyar, there is no celebration. So they will all mourn throughout the year. And every year on the anniversary, sons and daughters get together for annual prayers. That's where the sons will shave their head and sit for the prayers. That's why you might see your student shaving their head annually. 10 more? I think it should be fine then. Okay, weddings. Very common like anywhere. We have a very wild kind of weddings you might have seen in a neighborhood if you live close by Nepali families. Our weddings are very wild. They go for very long days. Okay, it's a very expensive weddings are happening these days. So traditional weddings happens, love marriages are there. There is intercaste marriages and things that we see very common. And the last one, no dowry in Nepali wedding. I don't know if you know about dowry. Dowry is a system where the girl's family will have to pay the boy's family for getting married with the daughter. That's a very common system that happened once upon a time in Asian culture, but it doesn't persist in Nepali culture. For some reason, in Bhutanese community, I have never heard of dowry. So the girl's family will not have to give anything to the boy's family. Rather, the boy's family will have to bring everything the girl would need. So these are the pictures of the wedding. Some very beautiful pictures there. So some common social issues that we see. Mental health is one of the very common prevailing issues. I think not only in Bhutanese, but across all immigrant and refugee population, mental health is very common. Maybe it's all because we talk about the triple trauma paradigm is all impact of all those. In general, refugee population, you see, I put that highlighted that it's 31.5% people suffer PTSD, 31.5% depression, 15% psychosis. But if you just see in Bhutanese population, according to the various research, it says that 4% are diagnosed with mental health disorder. So this is all correlated to the displacement, hardship in refugee camp, isolation in United States, all this collect together to create those. And there is a very low level of mental health care seeking. People do not seek for the care because mental health is not considered as an illness. It is just considered as a bad fate or karma rather than illness. Gender role is more patriarchal society. Men makes more decisions in the family than women. And this is probably the last slide. Education is considered a tool for upward mobility like any other community and any other families, but there is a low literacy rate, hence there is a less involvement in the school. Parents would not have that capacity to get involved with the school because they don't know. They don't know how to help their kids at home. I am a father of a fourth grader. If my wife was not working for a district, my son would have never been in that gifted class. Because I don't know how to handle so many things because I didn't study in the same way that the schools are here. So it's very challenging. And for families who do not have that capacity to read and write in English, it's very challenging because that is one of the reasons why there is a very less involvement of families in school. Unaware of many, so what that school family engagement means and what is the impact of it, they're not aware of it. So it's not the ignorance part, it's more of unaware of the benefit of that. They do have a very high respect towards teachers and educators. There may be here and there random situation where a student would be very arrogant to you, but the parents are just opposite. Parents are very respectful to the teachers. That is why they leave everything to the teachers. You might have faced families, oh, I am giving it to you, you handle it, right? It's not because they don't want their child, but they think that you handle them better in terms of education than what they can. They trust teachers more, because I was teacher for 17 years, so I know how much trust they have upon me for so many of the children. Many of the students' parents who are here, whose students were my students once upon a time. The linguistic, cultural, and systemic barriers is the biggest thing that is prevailing these parents to get access to all those support services around. And that is the last 2 minutes, right? I should have made it short so that you can have more time to question and answer. But I am a resource person at the district. If you have any question, you can always find me. So if you have any question, I'm here. I can hang out here as long as you like. I can switch off my mic if it is too much irritating. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. As he said, if there's any other questions, please come up here after him, or right now, if you guys are free to go. It's time to roll out of here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the valuable information.
Thank you,
We
sir.
appreciate it very much.
It just happened at the right time because